Hello viewers, today we're going to be taking a look at the BTU Serenity Series air conditioner. I purchased this at the beginning of the spring and used it for the majority of the summer. So this will be my formal review on the unit after several months of operation. This is the BTU ESAQ406TZQ1 air conditioner. It's rated at a capacity of 6,200 BTUs. It's manufactured on February of 2021, which is kind of odd because I purchased it in 2023, I think in April, so it sat for quite a while before it sold. To begin, let's take a look at the price in comparison to other machines. When I purchased this back in, let me see, when did I purchase it? I purchased a unit in March 25 of this year, March 25, 2023. At that time, I paid $299.95 for the machine. As of today, which is August 29, 2023, it is retailing for $384.33, which is a pretty steep increase since the spring. And these prices are on Amazon. You might be able to find it cheaper if you search around to other retailers. So $384 right now, or $299 when I bought it, is very high for a half-ton unit. Half-ton is 6,000 BTU. You can still, as of this day's taping, find a 6,000 BTU unit with ease for only $200, maybe $180, $170 if you get a good sale. So this is off the charts in terms of price. I got it anyways because I was intrigued by the noise level, because this is supposed to be very quiet. That was the design of this unit, and I can't stand noisy appliances. So for me, it was worth the extra $100 to get something that's quiet. I have a huge opposition to modern appliances. I much prefer old ones. I cool my house almost exclusively with air conditioners from the 1980s and the 1990s or even older, because I generally find modern air conditioners are pieces of junk. This is the only one I'm using right now that's newer. There's three issues I find very consistently with modern air conditioners: poor airflow, poor temperature regulation, and ridiculous amounts of noise. This unit does not seem to have any of those three problems, which is shocking to me. Let's take a look at some of the other pieces of information here. So this is a 115 volt unit. It claims to pull 4.6 amps under full load, which is actually very low. The SEER is 12, which is quite high for units of this form factor. It utilizes this new R32 refrigerant, which I don't like because it's explosive. It's more or less a derivative of propane. And that's about all there is to show on there. There is a General Electric branded unit that exists, which is the same thing. BTU is the actual manufacturer, and then they sell it to General Electric, and General Electric puts their name on it and sells it. I don't know if there's a difference in the price between the two. I believe at the time I bought this one, the General Electric one was more expensive. This one has inflated so much. Maybe the General Electric one is cheaper. I don't know. I don't really care. It's not worth checking it out because it's going to change all the time. So if you want to try to save money, check out the General Electric one because it might be cheaper at some given time. I don't know. So this has electronics controls, which I don't particularly like. I much prefer mechanical control. And it also has a remote, which has a million buttons on it. There's a lot of, not necessarily confusion, because it's not really difficult to use, but it's much more complex than it should be. So we have 4 modes over here. We have fan, cool, e-save, and dehum, which I guess they're considering dehumidify. The fan mode runs the fan and nothing else, no compressor. The energy save turns the fans off with the compressor, and there's a problem with that. We'll get back to that in a minute. Cool runs the fan constantly and turns the compressor on and off based on the set temperature. And dehumidify runs the fans constantly and turns the fan on and off based on the set temperature. There is absolutely no difference to be had between cool and dehumidify. The machine does exactly the same things on cool and dehumidify. Every air conditioner is intrinsically a dehumidifier because that's just the way it is. As air passes over a cold coil, it'll take moisture out. A dehumidifier is nothing more than an air conditioner that only sits inside. It's the same thing. So that is a gimmick, and it just creates additional and unnecessary complication to the control sets. It has this sleep timer thing. I've never used that, so I don't really know how it works. And then it has the 3 fan speeds, high, medium, and what they call quiet instead of low, and then automatic, which I guess the automatic just adjusts the fan speed based on the ambient temperature and the set temperature. So every time you turn it on, it defaults to energy saver. It seems to hold the temperature, but it will change from cool to energy saver. The problem with energy saver is a temperature regulation issue. The thermostat for the unit is inside here up against the coil, which is very standard. It sits right here. The problem is, if you turn the fan off as soon as the compressor shuts off, the coil is still going to be cold, and it's going to take some time for the coil to become ambient temperature. This thermostat is sitting up against a cold coil. The room will absolutely heat up well before that thermostat heats up because of the temperature of the coil. So you might experience on the energy saver mode that the coil or the temperature regulation is not very good. That's why. It's a design flaw that exists on almost every single unit of this form factor. Why they can't take the thermostat and like put it over here is beyond me. I have no idea. It makes no sense. But for decades, this is how they've been designed, and this is the flaw that has existed. While we're in here, this is the filter. It's pretty easy to change or to clean. It's a washable filter. You just rinse it off in the sink. I'll put it on backwards. I guess all these hooks here go on the inside like this, which makes sense because you have your tabs here that you can grab to slip it in. And I need to clean the filter. It's getting a little bit dusty. And then the cover just kind of goes on like this. Pretty easy. I have done a teardown video of this for cleaning and servicing. So if you're the rare breed that actually takes care of the equipment to the point of cleaning and servicing it every year like I do, I showed a video on that. It's not terrible. It's not the easiest one I've ever worked on, but there is definitely much worse out there in terms of designs. The design is satisfactory. Install was pretty easy. It makes a good seal on the windows. The side curtains go up pretty good. I don't know if it's like this because it was sitting in some kind of bad storage environment or what have you, but the curtains on this one kind of warp in about 1/8 of an inch in the middle. I don't really care. That might bother some people. I'm not sure if that's a defect or just a poorly molded thing. I don't know. But it sits in the window just fine. I have to keep this board under here because these are replacement windows, and they have this piece here which you can't put any weight on that. So I have that board there just to raise the air conditioner above that piece The board is not required for install unless you have windows like this. It'll make it a ton easier to fit in. The cord has a GFI thing on it, which is fine. Only nuisance is it has a light, which if this is in a bedroom, the light can be annoying. Another unit I forgot to another issue I forgot to underscore with a lot of the newer units, I guess it kind of goes along with the poor airflow, is that a lot of them, the register is on the front, and because the air is so weak, it blows out and just blows back into the unit. This one does not suffer from that problem either. The registers are up at the top. You can angle them a couple different degrees. I would have liked this to angle down maybe one more notch so it can blow like kind of out more, but this is not. I saw people complaining about this on the reviews, and I don't agree with the complaints. I think this is a good design because it keeps the air away from going back into the unit, and the airflow is strong enough that if it's like this or if it's like this, it will push your way into the room. So it's not a functional problem whatsoever. It does angle left to right if you want it to, and these don't feel bad. This is pretty thick plastic. The snaps are relatively pleasant. Sometimes those snaps are very hard to manipulate and they have a terrible sound. This isn't too bad. So let's go ahead and plug this thing in. I've got temperature here, a decibel meter for the audio, and power as well, so we can see how much power it draws. We got 120.1 volts, which is pretty standard. This is going to be a little bit of a problem here. Oh, we're not going to be able to see this too well. All we're going to do is measure the amps. Now, there's a flaw here with anything that's electronically controlled, and that is the fact that it always draws power even when it's off. Another reason why I don't like electronics controls. You can see it's drawing 0.04 amps while it's off, or 3 watts. So it draws about the power of a nightlight while it's turned off, which is kind of stupid because it really should draw 0 amps and 0 watts while it's turned off. Is that going to add up to more than a couple dollars a year? No, but it's a couple dollars you shouldn't have to spend. Alright, so first we'll start off with the fan. I'm going to turn this on to fan mode. I'm going to go to quiet. Now the remote, it works fine. There's just way too many buttons on the thing, and some of it doesn't quite make sense. Like, why is fan energy saver here? To me, like, this is temperature up and down. This should be fan slower, fan faster, and this should even be power on and off. And then this could have been your cool, energy saver, fan only, and this, I guess, the timer buttons or whatever. You know, like cools up there and dehumidifies down there. It's just the remote. I don't like it. It's very clunky and just excessively complicated. All the functions are there. In fact, it has more functions than the unit itself does. One of the functions the remote has, which the onboard controls does not, is the light feature. You can turn the lights off, which is super important to me for the bedroom. I could not sleep with that on. That would annoy me, having those lights and the number there be too bright for my preference. I turn it off every night, and a lot of electronic control units don't allow you to do that. So this, you can turn it off and the lights are gone. So that's good. That's one of my pet peeves of electronics controls, is light pollution in the house. Usually in the bedroom. In the other rooms I don't really care, but in the bedroom I don't want lights while I'm sleeping. So that's good. It does beep, but it's not like incessantly loud. I could do without it, but it's not a big deal. So the fan on low is very, very quiet. Well, I guess the battery that I chose to put in here is not charged up, so I'm going to go ahead and get another one. Got a new battery, and you can see when I stop speaking that this is very quiet. I'm checking this from about 3 feet away from the machine. And now I'll turn it off. So this is now with cool mode. So this has the compressor and the condenser fan, so there's going to be some more noise now. And just for comparison, let's go take a listen to the air conditioner in the other room here, which is about a 30-something-year-old unit. And I would consider this to be a very good air conditioner. This is on low as well, and this is pretty quiet. This is pretty average, if not a little bit on the quieter side from the air conditioners of this era. Now let's take a listen to this one. It's a little bit louder, but not by much. So to have a modern unit, which again most of them I find are very, very loud compared to the old ones, to actually beat out an older one is very impressive to me. This is very, very quiet. I think it would be very difficult, if at all possible, to find a quieter modern air conditioner than this. Very, very quiet. Now we're going to go up to medium, and medium gets substantially louder because the condenser fan is on low right now. It's going to bump up to full power, and it's kind of unfortunate that the condenser fan was not designed to be a little bit quieter, because the condenser fan is definitely the dominant noise here. I don't really hear the indoor fan or the compressor at all over the condenser fan. And now we'll go to high. And now I can hear the indoor fan, but the condenser fan does remain the dominant sound. So now I will turn the compressor off and go back to the fan mode, and you're going to hear actually, well, I'll do this. I'm going to turn the temperature up so the compressor goes off. You can see the noise level really didn't change much. Now I'm gonna turn it back to the fan mode so the condenser fan goes off. This is medium. That's with the condenser fan on, which is what you're going to get in cool mode. off. So you can hear the dominant sound, which is making most of the noise, is that outside component. And then high fan. Which does get kind of noisy. And then cool, which will have the condenser fan. Fan only. Gets a fair bit quieter. But even on high, you know, it's moving a decent amount of air. I think for the air move, the sound level is reasonable. Goes up to 86 degrees and it goes down to 61. Alright, so that's the noise level. Really quiet on low. Very nice. Alright, now let's check the temperatures out. The temperature inside this room is 75 degrees. Temperature outside is 72, so it's not going to be under much load, but... oh, jeez. Put the thing a little bit too far. It's not going to be under much load today because it's not hot out, but we'll get an idea of how it's going to work. Try to get that position pretty good. So I'll turn this on to temperature. And we've got, I had it on before, so the coil is still a little bit cold. It's 63 degrees right now. So I'm going to go ahead and engage the compressor, turn it into the cool mode. Turn this down a little bit. And it's going to take some time to turn on because the head pressure is too high from when it was running a few minutes ago. I think it probably has a 3-minute delay on there. And there it goes, it just came on. Window is a little bit vibrating here. What's going on with this? So you can see it blows pretty cold on low, right down to 46, and it's starting up quick again because I had it on recently. If this has been sitting all day or whatever, it would take some time to build the head pressure. I'll let this run for a few minutes to get down the temperature, then we'll come back with the video. It's been running for a number of minutes now, and the temperature has stabilized around 38 degrees. I would not expect it to always be this cold, because again it's only 72 degrees out, so it's under very little load. There is a problem at this speed. Indoor temperature right now is 74, so it should be fine. But when the indoor temperature gets very low, let's say 68 or so, the coil will start to ice up because the airflow is so limited. On these newer units, the coils are very dense, and when you have a low airflow condition like this, what will happen is if any frost starts to form, and actually, it's not quite starting to form just yet, but when any frost forms, because the coil fins are so close together, the air starts to block almost instantly and the thing just ices up. So if that happens, you just got to turn it on to fan only for a couple of minutes and it'll get all the ice off and you can put it back on cool. But this setting, the low setting, is phenomenal for this part of the country where we have a lot of cooler, damp nights like tonight. It's 72 degrees out with 86% humidity. I don't like the cold, so I don't really want it much colder, but this low speed will dehumidify very nicely and not drop the temperature in the room too much. And it's very quiet, it's unobtrusive. While it's running on low, let's go take a look outside so we can hear the operating sound from the outdoors, and I'll show something else about it from the outside as well. This is what the unit looks like from the outside. And as you can hear, it's also very quiet on the outside as well. I drilled a hole in the bottom of the unit, right in that channel where the water flows into the back, because rust is the enemy when it comes to these units. Rust will completely ruin the machine in just a couple of years and cause a refrigerant leak, and then it's no good. Now there's an argument that a lot of people provide which says that the water should sit inside the unit to cool the condenser, and there is some theoretical truth to that, but any efficiency gained from the water being in there is not worth the damage that the rust will cause. So I highly recommend drilling the hole right here in this part of the unit to let the water drip out as it runs. Will also keep the unit much cleaner, and when the coil is wet and dust blows through it, it sticks to it, blocking the airflow and making the cooling situation even worse. With the coil dry, most of the dirt will just blow right through it. It's a pretty big unit, it's very wide. The condenser seems to run very cool. Some units get pretty hot in the back, this one does not. Even without the water in there, it still runs pretty cool. Gonna bump it up to medium now. And we'll see the temperature go up slightly. This is normal, a couple degree rise. From a technical standpoint, I think medium is probably the best speed to run it at, because you have the condenser fan on full power throwing off the heat, but the coil will still get pretty cold on medium. Once you get to high, I find that the coil doesn't always get all the way cold, cold all the way through, and so it's not going to remove the humidity as well. And this is kind of one of the problems that you run into with this kind of form factor of unit where you have multiple fan speeds, because the charge is going to vary, especially with this machine where it runs so slow on low. On low the charge might be a little bit high, on high speed the charge might be a little low. It's just a variable that you can't avoid with these these units at different fan speeds and a single speed compressor. Alright, now we'll go to high. And you can see the temperature is going up a fair bit more. And I think if we let it sit for a few minutes, we might find the temperature goes up quite a few degrees on high. While the temperature is rising, let's go take a listen from the outside again. On high it's pretty noisy, you can hear that fan from a good distance away. And now the water's coming out. Highly recommend drilling the hole. It's very important for the lifespan of the unit. The thing will be around for much longer if you drill the hole. It is pretty loud on high from the outside. Generally speaking, I don't think that's a concern for most use cases. It's pulling a lot of moisture. This machine dehumidifies very well. It's been a few minutes now. The temperature has gone up to 46 degrees. which is a fair bit warmer than it was on low, but this is to be expected from a technical standpoint. And this temperature is still very satisfactory. The interior temperature of the room here is currently 73 degrees, and we look for a delta of 20. So we're going to look for at least 53 degree air coming out. So it's a fair bit below 53, so this is working very well still. Alright, so I think that's about all there is to show. Go ahead and turn this off now. So actually there's one more thing I wanted to show. I wanted to show the power draw, which I completely neglected to do. So let's run through the fan speeds first. I'll put it back on and it won't start the compressor up for a few minutes still. So actually I'm going to go to fan mode. So this is just the indoor fan. The indoor fan on high speed draws 0.42 amps. On medium it draws 0.34 amps, and on quiet draws 0.36 amps, which is pretty low. And if we go to cool mode, which will put the condenser fan on as well, if we have the condenser fan, we get 0.68 amps on medium, which puts the indoor fan on medium and the outdoor fan on high. We get 0.8281, and on high speed, which is high fan in, high fan out, we get 0.87 or 85. So it's about an amp for the fans. Now, one of the drawbacks to this unit, to the unit's design, is we have two fan motors. I've seen units with one fan motor that will draw a little bit less power, not much, but a little bit less. Most units only have one fan motor with the conventional design, but I think the lower noise level definitely is worth a slightly more power draw. So now let's see if we get the compressor to come on. It's going to want to sit for a minute before the compressor starts up. So we're looking at about 3.7 amps on low. Now it is only 72 degrees out, so this temperature is, or this power draw is pretty low. This will go up significantly when it's hot out because the head pressure will be higher. With 3.7 on low, let's go to medium. And we might find that on medium it draws less because the head pressure will go down. and such is the case. A lot of people think that the air conditioner draws the least amount of power on low, but that's not necessarily true, because the higher fan speeds will take a lot of load off the condenser, off the compressor, and since the compressor is the biggest power draw, it ends up drawing less power with your fan speed at a higher rate. Go to high, I don't think it'll make much of a difference because the condenser speed, or the condenser fan, is already on high anyways. And it's both the same. Back down to medium. At 3.7 amps, 3.6 amps is a very reasonable power draw for something like this. This doesn't use much power at all. It won't cost much to run this. We'll go down to low, and the draw will drop momentarily as the fans slow down, but it'll eventually climb back up as the head pressure builds due to the less airflow. So running it on medium probably is your best bet in terms of power draw. Medium or high. I think the on this unit, normally with the old design where there's one fan motor, you use high speed, but in this case, because the condenser fan is already at full power on medium, medium is just as good as high in terms of condenser cooling. So you can see now that the head pressure has gone up enough to raise the power draw past what it was on medium. So that's that for the power draw. Very efficient machine. Definitely is not going to cost much to run it, even for extended periods of time. So what's our conclusion here? It's a nice machine. Very, very quiet. It's definitely one of the quietest, if not the quietest, unit available on the market today. There might be a few that are a little bit quieter that are the DC inverter design, but I don't get into that stuff. I like this design better. This uses basic AC motors. It's easier to repair, find replacement parts, etc. Noise level is phenomenal. Cooling is good. It cools very well. This will actually cover most of the house if I close the living room door, which drops it down to about a 900 square foot area. So it cools pretty well. I mean, it takes its time, but it does do it. Power draw is reasonable. Noise level is reasonable. The design is reasonable. It's not the best of service, but it's not particularly difficult either. The controls are a little bit more complicated than they should be. Not necessarily difficult to figure out, but it definitely doesn't have the simplicity of a basic design, 3-speed knob or something that we had years ago. A big thing is going to see how long it lasts. This is a very expensive unit for the capacity. If it lasts, then that's fine. If it doesn't last, that's not fine. So really we need to check back on this in a couple years and see if it still runs. But overall I would give this a very high rating. I would actually go as far as to say this is maybe even a 9 out of 10. There's not a lot of products made today that I find satisfactory. Not a lot of products today that I would say are designed well. This is one of those rare cases where, for the most part, everything here is correct.